It is still morning. I was looking at my watch just to make sure. Hope you're doing well on a Tuesday. I know you're not normally used to me going live on Tuesday, and I was fully planning on going live yesterday. However, my morning was kind of changed with an unfortunate situation with a family in our church, and so I was needed elsewhere. And so we are going to do our Monday Manna on a Tuesday. You say, well, that doesn't make sense. Listen, if AFV can do Throwback Thursday on a Sunday, then we can do Monday Manna on a Tuesday. We'll do it one time. I'll try not to get into the habit of doing it all the time on Tuesday, but we're going to do that today. And I'm walking through this timeline in a devotional that I have personally that I'm reading this week. And something that I read in my morning devotion yesterday, I think it's very fitting because tonight is prayer meeting at the church. Yesterday, a lot of scholars and historians believe that on a Monday, Jesus returns with his disciples to Jerusalem. And along the way, he curses the fig tree because it had failed to bear fruit. Some scholars believe this cursing of the fig tree represented God's judgment on the spiritually dead religious leaders of Israel. Others believe the symbolism extends to all believers, including us, demonstrating that genuine faith is far more than just an outward religiosity, I guess you could say. Living faith, true living faith must bear fruit in our lives. And I think that's where I lean toward in that part of the story. Now, when Jesus arrives at the temple on Monday, and this is what I want to get to and then kind of plug our prayer meeting tonight. When Jesus arrived at the temple, he found the courts full of corrupt money changers. And you know the story. He began overturning their tables and cleansing the temple. And this is what he said in Luke 19:46. The scriptures declare, "My temple will be a house of prayer, but you have turned it into a den of thieves." On a Monday evening, Jesus goes into the temple and he says, this ought to be a place of prayer more than anything else. And he didn't just go off and say, you're not praying here. He said, you've made it a den of thieves. So is he drawing the symbolism that they were robbing from God? Yes. They were thieves operating in the house of God, taking advantage of people and really removing the sacrifice element of it. Just go in and buy an animal and then, give it to the priest. The sacrifice really was more than the killing of the animal, was the raising of the animal that would be slaughtered. And so on Monday evening here, you find where Jesus goes into the temple and he sets things right. I would say there's a lot of things that's going to take place in our churches this coming weekend. But God, don't let us overlook the importance of making sure that the house of God is first and foremost a house of prayer. First and foremost, a house of prayer. We know that evening Jesus stayed in Bethany again, probably in the home of his friends Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And that would lead him to the day events that we see today. Jesus and his disciples would actually go back to Jerusalem. They passed the withered tree on the way. Jesus spoke to his companions about the importance of faith. Back at the temple, same spot. Religious leaders are upset at Jesus because he has now established himself as a spiritual authority. And they organize an ambush with the intent that they were going to place him under arrest. But Jesus, he evades their traps and he pronounces harsh judgment on them, saying, blind guides, you're like whitewashed tombs. You're beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly, he said, you look like righteous people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. And then he calls them snakes and sons of vipers. How will you escape, he said, the judgment of hell? And later on that Tuesday afternoon, Jesus would leave the city and he would go with his disciples to the Mount of Olives, which sits due east of the temple. And he overlooks Jerusalem. And here Jesus gave the Olivet Discourse, an elaborate prophecy about the destruction of Jerusalem and the end of the age. He speaks, as usual, in parables and symbolic language about the end time events, including his second coming and the final judgment. Scripture indicates that this Tuesday was also the day that Judas Iscariot negotiated with the Sanhedrin, the rabbinical court of ancient Israel, to betray Jesus. And after a tiring day of confrontation and warnings about the future, Once again, Jesus and the disciples returned to Jerusalem, or returned rather to Bethany to stay the night. The tumultuous events of Tuesday and the Olivet Discourse, they're recorded in Matthew chapter 21, Mark chapter 11, and John chapter 12, and you can read that, and I would encourage you to do that today. My main point of this all is he was not happy with what was going on at the church house. And he said, my house shall be called a house of prayer. Make my house a house of prayer. So I want to invite you in this Holy Week, whether you come to Harvest Church or not, if you don't have anywhere to be tonight, I would encourage you to go to Harvest Church this evening. And I want you to make up your mind. We're going to pray. We're going to make sure that we're right with God. We got needs that we're going to be praying over tonight. We've got situations that we're going to be taking to the Lord. And most importantly, we are just going to spend time with God. We're going to spend time in His presence. You don't want to miss this tonight. Prayer meeting tonight at Harvest Church at 7 o'clock. God bless you. Thank you so much for being a part of Monday Manna on a Tuesday morning. We'll get back on track next week. God bless you.